Realize it's fashionable in some circles to believe that no one in government should encourage others to read the Bible. That we're told that we'll violate the constitutional separation of church and state established by the Founding Fathers in the First Amendment. The First Amendment was not written to protect people and their laws from religious values. It was written to protect those values from government tyranny.
Welcome to Liberty Watch, an independent program on KVOI, Tucson's Voice of Freedom. This program is dedicated to the principle of eternal vigilance, which is necessary to maintain a free society. It promotes the free flow of information about government, technology, education, current events, and history, relying upon our steadfast Constitution to frame the informed consent of the Republic so that government forever remains servant, not master. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of KVOI, its sponsors, or guests. Liberty Watch is produced and hosted by Charles Heller. Any mistakes are his responsibility.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to hear is true.
Dateline, Paris, Texas. Around 5:30 a.m. Thursday, June 22nd, on Johnson's Wood Drive, police said a homeowner found an intruder in the kitchen after being alerted by the family dog. The homeowner fired one shot with a handgun, and the suspect fled the scene. Neither the victim nor the victim's dog were injured, and no charges are pending against him. This has been the Defensive Gun Use, or DGU, Files.
The story you have just heard was true.
248 years ago, this nation was conceived in liberty by a document that is still quoted today around the world. Come join the listeners of this station to gather in front of the Udall Park Rec Center at 8:30 a.m. July 4th for a 9 o'clock public reading of the Declaration of Independence. That's 8:30 a.m. Thursday, July 4th, in front of the Udall Park Rec Center, 7200 East Tankerverde Road. America Armed and Free is a paid program on KVOI, wholly owned by Charles Heller, produced, engineered, paid for, and hosted by him. Any opinions are his, not necessarily the station's.
I, Harry S. Truman, President of the United States, dedicate this day of Sunday to America Armed and Free.
The Constitution does not say that government shall decree the right to keep and bear arms. The Constitution says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
I am a minute man. I am the guardian of America, armed and free. For we knew it will always be the citizen who is the guardian of America, armed and free.
Welcome to America Armed and Free, a program dedicated to preserving your God-granted, constitutionally guaranteed individual right to keep and bear arms in defense of self or state, understanding that the citizens are the militia. This program is produced by Charles Heller and is not endorsed by anyone who isn't pro-choice on freedom.
We are the guardians of America, armed and free.
Indeed, we are the guardians of America Armed and Free, both in uniform, as my guest has been, and not, as I have not been, unless you count ROTC. And it is a joy, a pleasure, and an honor to welcome to the microphones and telephones for the first time of America Armed and Free, Michael Cargill. Michael is the plaintiff in Cargill versus, what's that darned attorney general's name again? Oh, yeah, Garland. That's it. And anything versus Garland and you win, hallelujah. Welcome to the program, Michael. Are you with us? Michael, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am. Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. You got to take it off of mute.
Exactly.
I know that symptom very well. It's called dead air syndrome. So you get that. So does everybody. In any case, you're a really, really interesting study, if I may talk about you a little bit before we talk about the case. You're a veteran of 12 years in the Army. You did something that's very specialized in the Army, a musician. You taught other people music. What motivated you to go in the military?
Well, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
I graduated from high school back in 1987, and so I didn't have an idea in any direction at that time. And so I said, well, I guess I'll choose the military, and that's what I did. I joined the military. I took an audition for the United States Army Band, and so I became a musician in the Army.
And you're a multiple instrument player, if I remember correctly. I remember reading the bio, right?
Yeah, I play tuba, trumpet, and trombone.
Okay.
It's funny because I know more about music than I do about guns.
You know who you share that in common with? The GOA rep. What is her name? Oh gosh, she's such a wonderful human being and pretty easy on the eyes. And she's the GOA rep for Texas. She's a music major. She had a master's in music, and she wasn't pro-gun until she started doing research in the last 10 years, and she ended up going from mildly anti to running GOA in all of Texas. And I'm trying to think of her name, and it doesn't strike me at the moment. We brought her over from Texas to speak 2 years ago at the Arizona Citizens Defense League annual meeting, which I'm going to invite you to speak at next year. So whether the board likes it or not, we need you over here. So what motivated you to eventually, I know there was an incident in your family, but what was it that motivated you to sort of move into the right to keep and bear arms realm?
Yeah, so originally, once I finished the military, I served 12 years in the United States Army. I finished that, and then I started working for a telecommunications company out of Dallas in Austin and installing DSL around the country, and like DSL back then in like Texas, Louisiana, and Oklahoma, Colorado, those places like that. And then I got away from telecommunications, and then I started a trucking company. I moved elevators around the country for a Schindler elevator. If anyone ever heard of the movie Schindler's List, well, Mr. Schindler has a elevator company, and so we moved elevators around the country for him, and did that for quite a while. And then I opened up the gun store because, I wanted to make sure that, everyone in my family had the tools they need to protect themselves. I wanted to make sure they knew what the laws were. I wanted to make sure they're proficient with a firearm. And so my grandmother decided that at 60 years old, she was going to go back to college, get a college degree. And she wanted to become a nurse at 60. So this one day, she was traveling from a college library, sitting at a bus stop, waiting for a bus to come. And then the guy came along, mugged her and raped her. And so I decided at that point that I would make sure that no one in my family would ever be victims again. Instead of getting angry and projecting that energy in the wrong way, I decided to, arm everyone in my family, give them the tools, give them the training and the knowledge, so that way the next time they would be able to defend themselves. And that's how I opened up the gun store.
Wow. Two things. Number one, that track is parallel to a lot of people who became famous, like, for instance, Sandy Froman, who had an experience similar to that, a friend get sexually assaulted in San Francisco, and she decided from being somewhat anti to become a gun owner, and she was appalled at the time in California, the hoops you had to go through, especially in San Francisco, to buy a firearm, and it turned her into an activist. That and marrying a famous police officer, Bruce Nelson, who also had a famous holster making company. Those two things turned her into an activist. She ended up president of the NRA. So,
wow.
And
there you go.
Yeah, and then it's interesting you say that because my son was a cable installer, and he started his own trucking company.
Look, there's a correlation there. I'm not sure what it is, but there's one there somewhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, to your experience of along the pathway, maybe eventually he'll become a human gun rights activist. One can always hope. But anyway, so explain the nexus of how we got from you starting a gun shop to how you ended up suing BATFE for their ruling about the bump stock. How did that? Maybe give us the timeline, or maybe not the timeline, but the steps you went through to get to that point.
Right. So, back when they had the Las Vegas shooting, which was the largest mass shooting that we've ever had, in this country, there was a call to do something. Everyone wanted something done because they didn't have anyone to blame because the alleged shooter was dead. And so they needed to blame somebody. And instead of, focusing on, mental health and things of that nature and family, they decided to ban the object, that they, and they directed their anger toward that object. And everyone got on board with this. We're talking 5 years ago, President Trump was in office. And even President Trump came out and said, you know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and get rid of the bump stocks. The bump stocks are gone. We're going to get rid of them. Forget about them. They're out of there. And so just going to figure out a way to get rid of them. We're going to do it and be done with it. And so I said, hold on. This is crazy. Because if you do this, if you pick a part, it's not even a firearm, but a part of a firearm, and you can ban that in this country by just doing an administrative rule, then you will open up the floodgates, and there's no stopping them if you do this. I said you can't do anything off of emotions. You got to stop and think about what you're doing and the consequences of those actions. And no one wanted to listen. So everyone got on. Everyone was on board with this for the most part. The NRA was on board with it. A lot of people didn't want to put up a big stink because it was a conservative or Republican president saying we're going to get rid of this particular product or this piece. And so I said, no, absolutely not. And if I have to do this by myself, put on this fight all by myself, then that's exactly what I do. Because I have a tunnel vision. When it comes to the Second Amendment, there's a First Amendment that says that I have a right to express myself and say my piece. The Second Amendment says I can back that up with a firearm. And so, I have a tunnel vision, and the Second Amendment has got to be the strongest part of everything in our foundation. That is why the United States is the 911 to the rest of the world. Because we have guns here. And there's no way that someone's going to, land on American soil and think they're going to take over this country because there's so many guns in this country in every single home throughout this nation.
Yeah, to quote Admiral Yamamoto, a rifle behind every blade of grass.
Exactly. So I say, you know what? Fine. I'll do this all by myself. I'll put in this fight by myself. I'll be the only plaintiff in this case, and I'll go forward. I'll look for an attorney. I need an attorney that's going to push this case to the United States Supreme Court. I need someone who's experienced, who's been to the Supreme Court, who's argued a case in the Supreme Court, and has the know-how and the funding to be able to do this. And so that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, Liberty Justice Center.
No, NCLA.
I'm sorry. You're right. I'm wrong.
Civil Liberties Alliance.
Thank you for correcting me. I apologize. I just had a guest from the other organization on, and I conflated the two. I apologize. You're right. NCLA. No worries at all. So it's NCLA. And so they were looking for a client. I was looking for an attorney that was experienced. And boy, it was a match made in heaven. And we kissed and got married. I love it. And match made in heaven. And I tell you what, stand by with our matches made in heaven for 3 minutes. We're on our quarter-hour break, and we're going to go ahead and start that now in the Wilkinson Wealth Management Studios with Michael Cargill of Cargill versus Garland. I keep forgetting that guy's name for some reason. Oh well.
This is Herman Cain, and if it has a muzzle, a nozzle, or a blade, you'll find your topic on America Armed and Free. Sundays, right after Liberty Watch.
Swap shop trains are coming, rolling down that free market track. Sunday mornings, you can buy, sell, or trade anything lawful and moral on the swap shop. Let's listen. Dawn Wells, is there anything you missed on the island?
Oh, well, actually, what I really missed, there we were with nothing to do. What I missed most was the swap shop. I mean, what fun we'd have had. I don't know how we'd have gotten a hold of you, but we'd have tried.
Swap Shop, Sundays 10 to 11 a.m., right before Liberty Watch.
I'm Oliver North, and like you, I'm listening on America Armed and Free with Charles Heller. Civilian disarmament is an essential precedent for every dictator who engages in mass murder.
I like guns, I like the way they look. I like the shiny steel and the polished wood. I don't care if they're big or small. They're for sale, still I want them all. I like guns, I like guns, I like guns.
Copyright content, Charles.
And welcome back to America Armed and Free. We had the joy, the pleasure, and the honor of having with us Michael Cargill, the successful plaintiff in Cargill versus Garland. And Michael, getting back to the issue of how you got there and the NCLA, New Civil Liberties Alliance, how did the case progress from the court where you first filed all the way up to the Supremes?
So once the ban went into effect, what I did was that 30 minutes later, after surrendering my bump stock to the ATF in the Austin office, we filed a lawsuit against the federal government and informed the ATF they need to keep those bump stocks in for safekeeping. So, we went along, COVID happened, and then the judge in the case says, you know what? Even though it's COVID, there are no court cases going on right now. We're going to go ahead and have this case, inside the courtroom, not on Skype or not online or anything like that. We're going to have it actually in the courtroom. So it was the first case post-COVID, inside a federal court in Austin. And so we went in. My attorneys plead the case, and I made sure that I attend every single one of our court hearings. I want to make sure I'm there, because this case was very important to me, and I want them to see my face and put a face to the name. And so we pleaded the case. My attorney did a wonderful job, aligned everything out, and the judge in that case in Austin said, "Okay, I get it. So the bump stock, that's kind of like a shotgun, where I pump with my left, and then I fire. It's like, okay, we're going to lose this case. This guy doesn't have a clue, what we're talking about here." So I knew we were going to lose that, and we lost. And you're gonna lose, some battles. You're definitely gonna lose. You may lose several battles, but the object is to win the war at the end. Mm-hmm. So we appealed that case to the Fifth Circuit in New Orleans, and in the Fifth Circuit, that's a court that's mostly conservative justices. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking, okay, well, we're bound to pull, a couple of conservative justices there, and we should be able to get past this, this hurdle. Mm-hmm. Well, we had a 3-judge panel in New Orleans, and I was, present for that. And then in that 3-judge panel, we drew all liberal justices for the 3-judge panel. Mm-hmm. So we lost that case. And the funny thing was, in their statement, they pretty much said, look, in order for anything to be done with bump stocks, Congress is going to have to act. Mm-hmm. So they acknowledged the fact, in the fact that they denied, our case, they acknowledged the fact that, that's something that Congress needs to act on, because, there clearly is there's a problem here in the definition of what the ATF is saying and what they did 10 years prior. Right. So, but we still lost that case regardless. So we appealed again, and then luckily the case was taken up en banc in front of the entire Fifth Circuit. I think it was like 12 judges there. Mm-hmm. And that's intimidating to me. People ask me, which was the most intimidating? Was the United States Supreme Court the most intimidating place, or was, that you've ever been to in your life? I said, no, not at all. To me, the Fifth Circuit was more intimidating because there were 12 judges there that were all throwing out questions and had questions. And, these judges were on top of their game. Mm-hmm. So luckily we won that case in the Fifth Circuit, and the government decided to appeal the case to the United States Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. And so they appealed. The court took up the case. They heard it in Satori. And then that case was actually, the hearing in that case, which I attended in Washington, D.C. also, the United States Supreme Court, in February of this year, 2024. So I attended the case, sat there in the United States Supreme Court, which was very, very moving for me because, looking at the walls, there were red walls, looking at the pillars, white pillars that were in the room there was very, very, very moving, feeling all the energy, everything that came before you. Here I am at this point in time, and my name has been mentioned inside that room, and the hollow ground there I thought was just amazing. And I was just really, I was like on a high, the entire time. And so they heard the case in February, and then we had to wait several months before the hearing, before the results of the case, and then it was befitting. It dropped on their website on June 14th, which was
Flag Day,
the Army's birthday.
Oh,
Army's
really?
birthday, and that's right. And June 14th,
Same
you're
day.
right. It was Flag Day, and so it was very fitting the fact that we were able to, really put our foot on the legislative branch, a branch, pretty much a branch of the government there, and hold them at bay and say, look, hold on, the power belongs to the people, not you. And the Supreme Court agreed. For 10 years, the ATF said that bump stocks were not a machine gun. They were approved under the Obama administration. The Bush administration didn't have a problem with it. And then all of a sudden, the Las Vegas shooting happened. And then under the Trump administration, boom, they became banned. And then guess what? The ATF removed that document, that, the bump stock ban document. They removed the word bump stock and inserted, brace, inserted trigger, inserted whatever they want to go after next.
Yeah, they went after they went after the pistol brace. They went after the force reset trigger, which is a trigger that fires once when you press in and then fires again when you let off, which requires two separate actions. It's not a machine gun. They called it one.
That's right. And so, and that's where we were. And luckily on June 14th, the United States Supreme Court said, you know what, ATF, you cannot do that. You cannot create a right law. They referenced the Chevron deference, and boom, we won that case. Not only did it give me exactly what I wanted, the clarification of what a definition, what a machine gun was, and also the fact that the ATF cannot create a right law, boom, they gave me even more. And I love that. And so it was an overwhelming victory that will be heard and studied and talked about on college campuses around this country in law school.
I saw that picture of you standing in your company shirt, your gun shop shirt, standing on the steps of the Supreme Court. And I was thinking, the only thing missing is a 1911 with Moulin LeBay on the side.
I know. That's the only gun I could get in there was the one that was on my shirt.
Yeah. I'm surprised they didn't accuse you of racism. I know. Yeah. Anyway, it's funny and it's not. I mean, we have to joke about things as a defense mechanism against all things cruel and rotten. Otherwise, we'll get depressed and cry about it. But you sure didn't do that. You sure took the fight right straight to them. And when do you think that this actually was not a Second Amendment decision? It was a decision about the Administrative APA, the Administrative Procedures Act, and whether or not like you said in Chevron deference, whether or not the agency could be granted, basically, if they were Catholic, they'd say, I'm not Catholic, they would say nihilobstat, authority from the Pope to go ahead and do what they do. And what the court said, like you said, they put their foot down. They said, no, you cannot exceed your authority under the color of law. Do you have any, I realize you're not an attorney, you're a musician, but what effect, what trumpet call might that sound in terms of using your case as precedent towards other freedom?
Just that, my case, as well as the Chevron case that actually dropped like a couple days ago, those cases are going to be used to protect our Texas farmers, our Texas ranchers. It's going to stop these government agencies from really, just creating rules and putting our farmers, our ranchers out of business and doing the things they're trying to do around the country and in other industries as well, not just those. It's going to stop every single administrative agency and stop them in their tracks and say, hey, you cannot create a right law. You can't create a rule to ban something that someone legally purchased, something that they're legally doing, and turn around and say what you're doing is illegal or what you're owning is illegal. You cannot do that. You don't have that right. You don't have that authority.
They're going to try. All right, hold on. We got Rick wants to ask you a question. Rick, you're on with Michael Cargill of Cargill versus Garland. Your comment or question, please be brief. We have a break coming up in 2 minutes, and I'll let you stay over the break if your question needs a follow-up. Go.
So that's exactly what you're just talking about right now. I want people to think, and your guest has dove into it. Think about, people will say, oh, it's a bump stock. I don't know, man, it doesn't affect me. You can go to bed Friday night, and you're not in any risk of being a felon because you have an 11-round 96 Brigadier, a couple magazines in your house.
Yeah.
And you wake up by Monday afternoon, ATF has issued a order. Nope, we've decided that only 10-round magazines. Your state legislator can use it too. But ATF can issue, and then by the time you go to bed Monday night, you're potentially a felon. Mm-hmm. This is totally unacceptable. It is against the Constitution, and I want to thank your guest for standing up for his rights, because it's not about a bump stock. It's about everything else. It's about someone with a 440 motor in their car they're working on their garage. When the EPA decides that is a felony, often in some dystopian future, that for climate change, that's a felony to own that. You have to turn all these large motors in.
Yeah, so that they can run them.
We're headed.
All right. Do you have a specific anything else for Michael Cargill?
So I guess the question is, has he received the bump stocks? You may have covered this on
I didn't.
His bump stocks back.
I was going to ask that, but you did it for me. Michael, have you gotten your bump stocks back?
No, I have not, but I did get a call from the government, the United States government, and the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms that said that I can come and pick them up. But I declined at this time to pick them up because I want a judge's ordering them to be returned to me.
Ooh, if they tell you can get them, why don't you just go grab them? What's the, I understand what you want. You want to make sure you have standing to go in there and to march in there and get them, not just their request.
That is correct.
Is that dangerous and that they might destroy them, saying you abandon them?
No. So we're going to get the judge's order, but we just have to wait for that to happen because the judge in the lower court is being a very difficult judge. So we want everything done the right way, in writing, and there would be no questions later on down the road.
Were you that way before the Army, or did you just learn from experience? Well, what made you learn how to dot your I's and cross your T's, Michael?
Don't trust. I'm a federal firearms licensed dealer. You never ever trust the government.
I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that to be a promo on this program. Rick, do you need to hold through the break for a follow up, or do you? Does that do it for you?
I had a follow up. If you have another caller,
I don't. But we're over for the break at the bottom of the hour. So if you'll bear with us, I will let you stay on hold, and with Michael Cargill, and we will be back after.
Welcome to Monaural Radio, where we sing in black and white.
The right of the people to be secure in their places from warrantless raiders with masks on their faces means little or nothing without threat of force. Without the second, what good is the fourth?
And welcome back to America Armed and Free. I know the guy that wrote that, hell of a fella. Anyway, but with Michael Cargill of, what's the name of the gun shop in Texas?
Central Texas Gunworks.
Central Texas Gunworks in Austin. Where in Austin are you?
We're a stone throw from the Capitol. So we're just south of downtown Austin on Ben White, the road that goes straight to the airport.
All right. I'm going to have to drive over there and do some shopping at your store. Of course, we'll have to have it shipped here. I can't legally buy from you and just grab it and after paying for it and go. But someday we'll get that solved.
Yes, we will.
I think anybody with a CCW or in Texas CHL or what do they call it now? CPL?
LTC, license to carry handgun.
Right, LTC. Yours is a little different than ours, but it's similar. Your laws are also a little bit different than ours. Your laws are a little bit more lenient towards the defender in Texas than ours are. Ours used to be so much better for carry than yours, but you guys fixed that. You guys fixed that a few years ago with constitutional carry. Even then, people still get in trouble. I've heard a podcast where you talk about that, and I do want to ask about that a little later. Right now, I want to respect caller Rick's time. He had a follow-up question. Rick, go ahead.
So your guest, he's in Austin city limits, is my understanding.
Yeah, Michael Cargill is his name. Let's not refer to him in the third person.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Does your case then bear on the brace, the brace? Okay,
brilliant question, Michael.
Yeah. So the Cargill case, what it will do is it set precedents. It's going to be case law, and so it will be used to knock down the brace ban. They're going to have to make their way through the courts, and then boom. Your brace ban is going to be gone permanently. Right now, yes, we can have braces again, temporarily right now, this moment in time because of the injunction. But yes, the Cargill case will be used as case law to say, hey, ATF doesn't have that authority to say this. Braces were legal. All of a sudden, they changed their mind. They flip-flopped back. You can't go back and forth. You're going to have to go back to Congress and ban it through Congress.
Does that answer your question, Rick?
Yeah, so it does. It does, thanks. And I want everybody to think about this, too, is that's why we have a Congress. That's why we have a Constitution. And that is why there's 3 co-equal branches, is because the idea that the ATF can just come out and come out with a ruling that affects your life in the fact that it can affect your freedom. If you don't pay attention, you don't have the internet, in a hypothetical situation, they make a ruling, you get stopped in a police stop 6 months down the road, you're living up in Sholo in the middle of the woods, and then next thing you know, you're faced in federal court, facing a felony. This is absurd. This is no way to run a country, as someone once said.
Yeah.
So I want to thank, I want to thank
Michael Cargill.
For, I'm having trouble pronouncing that. Anyways, thank you very much for bringing the case and for standing strong and standing up for the Second Amendment. And thank you for your service.
Hey, thank you very much. I really appreciate the questions.
Mm-hmm. All right, that opens the line for you, and you can ask away, fire away, if you will, at Michael Cargill and me, and anything you want to know about activism-related stuff, about legal-related stuff. Michael, are there any other cases that you might maybe have your eye on as to being a plaintiff, like there was a Heller 2 and actually a Heller 3 decision? Are there any other cases you're kind of looking at and going, hey, I'd love to go after this?
Yes, we actually filed a lawsuit in federal court against the ATF for trying to protect mom and pop gun stores. What the ATF is doing is they're walking to mom and pop gun stores, conducting an inspection, and looking for any small little paperwork errors they can find so they can shut those gun stores down. And so, there's 100 different data points on the 4473, the firearm transaction record, the paperwork that you fill out when you walk in the gun store. There are 100 different ways to make, mistakes on that paperwork. And for example, there's a box in there that says county. Some people make mistake that for country, And so because of that small little error, they're saying, hey, you just transferred a gun to someone that's a prohibited person because they didn't fill the paperwork out right. And then they're trying to shut that gun store down because of that.
Like Reds in Idaho.
And so, yeah, it's insane. It's crazy. They're not trying to transfer a gun to a prohibited person. You just had a customer that made a mistake on the form, is all it is.
So where is that lawsuit go now? Where's it?
So we're still in the first court for that one, the first federal court. And so we're waiting for a hearing for that. We're actually waiting for summary judgment for that one to see if we get a summary judgment. And then we'll see what happens there. And then we also have a case against the state of New York. Now, this one, I'm a co-plaintiff. This case is brought by NSSF, National Shooting Sports Foundation, and also with other major manufacturers and major distributors, that are out there, like RSR. So major
RSR is a distributor out of Illinois that sells. It's a wholesaler, sells guns to the dealers. Go ahead. I just want to make sure people know.
Correct.
Yeah. Right.
Correct. So we've gotten together with some major manufacturers, major distributors and a couple of gun stores to sue the state of New York. The state of New York says if I sell a gun to someone here in Texas, that gun winds up stolen from that person in Texas, ends up in New York and uses a crime. The state of New York can come back and sue me, the dealer, the distributor, and your manufacturer.
Has anyone?
How
do you get? Excuse me for interrupting, but how do you gain standing on that in terms of if you haven't been damaged yet? And how can you gain based on what just happened with Missouri versus Murphy with the standing issue? How are you going to gain standing on that?
Well, that's something that our attorney is going to have to work through, because what I don't want to happen is that I don't want to wait until one of my guns end up in the state of New York in that situation and then faced with, civil or criminal, penalties there. So I don't want to wait for that opportunity, because right now we're all in jeopardy because of what the state of New York is doing.
I can tell you that in the Heller case, I'm not related to Dick Heller. I want to say that. That's not me. But in the Heller case, he was the only one left with standing out of the 6 original plaintiffs. Originally, it was called Parker, for Shirley Parker in D.C. And the reason that Heller retained his standing was because his attorney, Dane von Breckenruckert, common spelling, Dane von Breckenruckert told him, you get your backside into the D.C. Police Department and attempt to register a handgun and get a rejection letter. And because he did that, that rejection letter was what gained him standing for the whole Heller case. Otherwise, it would have been the same thing would have happened at the Supreme Court as happened with Missouri versus Murphy. And I got to tell you, if you could get in writing from the New York Bruins descendant, Bruins no longer in, the head of the state police in New York, that if someone were to commit a crime in New York with a gun, that that you would be sued, there would be your standing.
Yeah. So, and there are other cases that we have also. There's one that I won successfully again, and that was against the city of Austin, and that was brought off by the Texas Attorney General's office. The city of Austin in Austin, Texas used to ban guns in all their buildings and their properties and stuff. So, which they couldn't do that. The way Texas law is written, as a citizen who's legally carrying a firearm, especially at that time with a license, I can carry on their property, I can carry in their buildings, as long as it's not a courthouse or offices utilized by the court. And I can carry in their buildings. And so they actually prohibit this. They did not allow guns in their buildings at all. So I did have to make several attempts to walk into the building and had to be denied entry into the building. And so I filed a complaint with the Texas Attorney General's office. Texas Attorney General filed a lawsuit against the city of Austin. We took them to court and we won.
When was that?
Put me on the stands. I was on the stand. This was, oh my goodness, don't make me do that.
That's okay. It was a while ago. Okay, that's great.
Yeah, a little while ago. So I would say like maybe 6 years ago.
And you actually had to go in and testify on it.
Yes, I had to go and testify in court. Kept me on the stands for about an hour. And, but I know my stuff. You can throw questions at me left and right. One thing I know the gun laws. And so, boom, we won that case. And the city of Austin lost. They had to pay attorney fees and $9,000.
Wow. And so now you can go into their buildings. Is that strictly concealed carry, not open carry?
It's open or concealed.
And so that's been the law in Texas for more than 5 years now?
And one thing about Texas is we can actually carry in the Texas state capitol. So we can walk into our capitol. You have a license to carry a handgun. You can walk to the capitol. You give the trooper at the door your license. That trooper swipes your license. Your information shows up on the screen. And boom, in you go into the capitol. You can openly carry, concealed carry your handgun inside the Texas state capitol. You can testify before your elected officials inside the state capitol, openly carrying or concealed carrying a handgun in the committee, in the House, the Senate, and all their meetings. That's why I love Texas.
Yeah, but that's only true, or that's true, at least it's true in Austin because of somebody named Michael Cargill who challenged the system. Good on you. All right, stand by. We're at our 3/4 of the hour mark. I want to talk about your podcast that you have, but I want to do that after the break. You can stay with us for the last segment?
Yes, sir.
All right, stand by. Man, boy, sure can tell a veteran, can't you, by their answers? And we'll be back in a little bit. Swap shop trains are coming, rolling down that free market track. Sunday mornings, you can buy, sell, or trade anything lawful and moral on the swap shop. Let's listen.
I have a Chevy 283 with a Rochester 4-barrel carburetor.
had a typo in there. I made it a 293. Bored it out 10 over. Right on the radio.
Do that a couple more times for me.
We'll turn it into a 302 for you. Nothing flat. Swap Shop. Sundays 10 to 11 a.m. right before Liberty Watch. Imagine that this is your daughter.
What do you want?
Now you get to decide how this scene ends. Or...
Stop, bro! Stop!
Some misinformed people want to take away your daughter's choice between rape and self-defense. We're pro-choice on self-defense. Jews for the Preservation of Firearms Ownership, jpfo.org. How about that, Michael? Does the rifleman theme make you want to go back to the trumpet or the trombone?
Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Did you grow up watching that? You're a bit younger than me. Did you grow up on that series or the reruns of it?
No. And I'm 55.
Oh, well, yeah, you're 12 years younger than me, so. I'm just, yeah, I mean, it was well over with by the time it was in reruns by the time I was a kid, but by the same token, that theme music, especially that 3220 Winchester they had. By the way, have you ever seen that gun?
Yes.
Oh, you've seen in the NRA's collection? That is one of the most dangerous firearms there ever was. He had a screw installed in the trigger so that when you closed the lever, it fired. Oh my God, is that unsafe?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not. You would never get away with a gun made that way. Well, it wasn't made that way. It was modified that way. Connor's owned both of those rifles, and one of them's in the NRA collection. I don't know where the other one is, but man, that's a fascinating historical gun. So, oh well. Back to it. Talking about cases. Do you have any advice for people who want to do activism the way you do with legal cases? Do you have any advice for people?
It's hard, but what you can do, try to reach out to nonprofit organizations that are out there, and be there. They're organizations that are looking for plaintiffs. They're looking for people to stand up and be that person to so they can file a complaint for in court. What was it, last year before last? The government under the Biden administration passed a law to where that if you're younger than 21 years of age, you're purchasing a firearm from a gun store, which you can only get a rifle or shotgun, that you automatically get delayed in that transaction.
Yep.
And so we've tried to find plaintiffs for a case. I tried to find someone for a case for over a year to do something about that, because it's like a 10-day delay they were automatically doing. And so it's just, and for no reason, this person can pass a background check. Why is it, you tell me just absolutely it's going to take you 10 days, every single time? And so unfortunately, we couldn't get any plaintiffs in that case. And so we just dropped it and left it by the wayside because we had other things we had to focus on.
There is a similar challenge to the Prop 114 in Oregon about that exact thing. They banned the possession of semi-automatic rifles for people between the ages of 18 and 21. Federally, it's 18, but in Oregon, they made it 21. And I think that's been knocked down at the appellate level. I think even in the Ninth Circuit that they've knocked it down recently, or maybe it's at the trial court division and it hasn't gotten to the circuit yet. I know I'm not looking at my updates right in front of me. But you're right. Nationally, they're doing that allegedly so they can do a deeper background check. But you know as well as I do that the computer can do the background check instantly. I mean, you know that better than I do. You're an FFL. You're not only an FFL, you're a Class 7 manufacturer. You got the license to manufacture machine guns today. And these idiots out there are saying machine guns are illegal. Yeah, you can't transfer a new one to the civilian market, but you can make them all day long, and you could have a range. You could have your own range and rent them on that range if you wanted to.
That's correct. That's correct. And the fact that some people say, oh, you can't, machine guns are banned. It's like, nah, there's a restriction, but they're not banned.
Yeah, they're taxed, but $200 tax stamp, and they're frozen at the number in the community. So there were about 226,000. We're now down to about 176,000, I think, in civilian hands. But there's lots of stores, especially in Tucson. There's lots of stores that have the was it Title II Class 3 SOT, not manufacturer, but they can sell suppressed short barrel shotgun, short barrel rifle, and full auto. It's lots and lots of licenses like that here. There's over 30 of those licenses just in Tucson alone. So,
right. Yeah. And I'm one of them. I'm a Type 07 manufacturer with an SOT. So yeah, we can do everything, all transactions.
Right. Yeah. SOT stands for Special Occupational Tax. It's the tax that people pay to be an FFL. Is that like $1,000 a year, $1,200 a year for that Class 7?
Yeah, depending on your license, it'd be $500 or $1,000. That's correct.
You probably have the $1,000 one.
Every June. Yeah, every June.
Yeah, you know that date. Okay. Well, and in closing, tell us about your podcast.
Yes, so I have, and the name of my podcast is Come and Talk. It used to be a radio show. I did the radio show for like 10 years. It's Come and Talk It. And the reason we say Come and Talk It, because in Texas, we have this thing, about, hey, come and take it. And there's a history behind that. Can't go into that right now. But so we named it Come and Talk It. And so we do it. I used to do it like every single Sunday, right around 4 o'clock. Now I'll do a show every now and then, and I'll stick to just some short videos and come out with certain news, or something changes, I'll make an announcement about that or something, something of that nature. And so you can find us on YouTube. It's Come and Talk It on YouTube. And like a year ago today, honestly, we probably only had about 10 subscribers on YouTube a year ago. And so we moved from the radio station into just the podcast. And now we're up to 170,000 subscribers.
You want to bet that after the decision, you get fairly close to 1 million?
I hope so.
Yeah. Has YouTube tried to screw you up, demonetize you, do anything like that to mess up your the algorithm for you?
Yeah, we've had a couple little bumps in the road. It's hard with these companies to walk that fine, thin line that they give you. Facebook is the worst. I've been shadow banned, knocked down, whatever on Facebook. But I Twitter, now under Elon Musk, Twitter is awesome. And I can do a lot better on Twitter than I can any other platform.
Have you ever considered doing your show live on Twitter, or do you already do that?
No. So I haven't done it live on Twitter since it changed to X. I haven't done it live there, but back when it was Twitter, and it was connected to a different platform, then yes, we did do one on at that time when it was called Twitter. I should refer to it as X. I'm sorry.
Suspensions you have for crossing your T's and dotting your I's and crossing your T's. So it's a refreshing thing because you're trying to do things right in activism. One of the things that I try to tell people is, for goodness sakes, do not try to do these cases where you are going up against government. Don't do them as a pro per litigant or a pro se litigant. Don't try and do this yourself. You're basically standing on the deck of the Titanic complaining about the false advertising of its unsinkability. Don't do that to yourself, and don't do that to the right to keep and bear arms. Find, like Michael Cargill said so wisely, find a nonprofit law center that will take up your case for you and do it as a public interest lawsuit. Don't try to do it yourself. You will end up with bad case law named after yourself. I give you, for example, Miller versus the United States in 1939, which really wasn't a decision. It was a remand is all it was. But the point is that was used as a club against our rights from 1939 all the way up until Heller in 2008. Heller versus District of Columbia. Find a public interest law firm and use it. That is really, I'm sure you do know how, I was going to say you don't know how wise it is, but I think you do know how wise it is. Seeing as how you just won in the Supreme Court, I think you do know how wise it is.
Yes, sir. Definitely encourage that. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, you get stopped by police. You know, I always tell people, exercise your right to remain silent. You know, there's certain things you have to know. You know, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. You know, don't talk to the police. Let your attorney do the talking to the police for you. It's one of those same things there that you just have to remember.
Yeah, there's no sense building a case against yourself. Yeah, I've been teaching our CCW course in here in October, it'll be 30 years. And I've helped get, through the Arizona Citizens Defense League, I've helped get 71 good bills passed through Arizona's legislature, including constitutional carry, which we were the only ones championing in the beginning, but then everybody got behind at the end. And it was surprising some of the folks who weren't in favor of it, including some of the people on the allegedly pro-right side, but they got converted after a while. Same thing happened as with Texas. After we went constitutional carry, the CCW permits fell off for about 6 months. Then they really started to climb. We had, when constitutional carry was declared here in Arizona, we had about 165,000 permits. It dropped to 162, has been climbing to over 400,000 ever since. So we had the same experience you did in Texas.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, we have over 1 million license holders in the state of Texas.
Well, you have a lot more folks than we do. So, and folks is the important part. All right, give your website, anything you want. We got 11 seconds left.
Absolutely. So you want to reach out and talk to me, ask me a question. My personal website is michaelcargill.com. The store, if you're looking to purchase a bump stocks, we're now selling bump stocks. So definitely reach out to me. Go to our website, centraltexasgunworks.com or shop.centraltexasgunworks.com and purchase yourself a bump stock and get a special message from Michael Cargill.
It should be signed. Every stock should be signed, Michael. Oh, that's beautiful. All right. Have a blessed day.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. I want to encourage you to be vigorous, not violent, vigilant, not vituperative. In Liberty, I'm Charles Heller.
Protect us by thy might, great God, our King.
AM 1030 KVOI, Cortero, Tucson. This dead air brought to you by Wilkinson Wealth Management.
I like guns.
Oh, come on, man. Where does he have the other one? Oh, I know it's on here somewhere. Maybe not. All right, we're listening to Charles Heller interviewing Michael Cargill this Sunday. I missed it live, so figured I'd replay it here. Listening to it off of his website and putting a link here in the description if anybody wants to check it out. And you can listen to Charles live on the radio. It is on KVOI Sundays. He has quite a few shows that he does, and Liberty Watch is one of those shows. Been looking for the song that he kind of alluded to there, but I'm not finding it on the website. I don't think it's this one.
Now I realize it's fact.
No, that's not. Let's do it at the beginning. And the only other place it could be one of these other pages here, and I don't remember. Used to be a link, I thought, to it. All right, well, so everybody, thanks for listening, and check out Charles's show on Sundays. Check out Michael Cargill at Come and Talk It.